Here we go, baby. Oh my God, that was a lot of wheel tramp. Come on. It's not fast. Come on, baby. Oh. Shut up. You shut up now. That'll teach him. Tick, 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 tick. And no, it doesn't mean you're a Swiftie. It certainly isn't very often that Suzuki brings out a new model, but they finally have with the Swift. This is the 4th generation Suzuki Swift, and it is heavily based on the previous generation, but they've made actually quite a lot of changes. In fact, a significant amount of changes, one might say. We have a new engine that's lost a cylinder and gained a relatively powerful electric motor. We have new exterior looks, but the interior has really changed quite a lot. We also have an updated price, but we'll come back to that at the end. I want to give this thing a fair review and without the price until the end. And frankly, to my mind, I just relish any time we get a new cheap Japanese car. Well, cheap-ish anyway, because that just seems to be a dying thing these days. So today we're going to take the new Suzuki Swift for a full review. We're going to check out the new exterior styling, what has changed, the new interior. We're going to talk about the engine because actually quite a lot has changed, not just with the engine, by the way, but with the transmission too. We're going to launch both the auto and the manual, see just how fast they are. And of course, we're going to drive each. And I'm going to give you my honest thoughts on the updated 5-speed manual and the all-new CVT auto. And then of course, I will reveal the price and end on my final thoughts. Should you buy the all-new Suzuki Swift? Well, kind of all new. Let's get into it. Okay, so what has changed with the exterior looks? Well, first of all, it's been redesigned in pretty much every area. And now it's 4.6% more aerodynamic, which apparently does help with fuel economy, but we'll come back to that when we drive it. Check out these new L lights here. I think they look pretty cool. We've got some pretty bright LEDs. This is of course the top of the range, but I have driven all of the range today, from the base model 5-speed manual with steel wheels to this top of the range CVT with alloy wheels. The bumper has been completely redesigned. You have this really cool mesh grille here with a radar. This thing does get updated safety systems, which is always good to see, especially when they're actually good. And by the way, along with this radar, you do have a single camera up there. You've got the Suzuki badge here, which to me still looks like when you drew that S thing in school. Does anyone remember that? Or is it just me? Anyway, under here, you could probably hear it roaring away now, is the new 3-cylinder engine with an insane 61 kilowatt of power. But we'll talk about that. It's pretty hard to imagine that this thing weighs under 900 kilograms, but it does. It's one of the lightest cars on sale in Australia. And I guess when you bang around, you can kind of tell. Let's check out the side. Alrighty, so coming to the side, and I love this. This thing is not big at all. Only 3,860 millimeters long, which is 20 millimeters longer than before, but otherwise it retains the same height and the same width. And of course, it retains its really small wheels. So being the top of the range, naturally, we get the biggest, the sexiest wheels. You get 16-inch wheels here. They are machine alloy. They look really nice, actually. Interestingly, it's disc brakes up front, drum brakes at the rear, so that kind of just shows you its cheaper underpinnings. But you do get these Yokohama Blue Earth tires, which actually work pretty well. Also, please excuse the yelling of the birds in the background. This is Australia, and apparently it's cockatoo mating season, apparently. Shut up. You shut up now. That'll teach him. If we walk a little bit further, you get keyless entry and go, which is nice to see, even on a top of the range here. Yep, tinted privacy glass, which is very good to see. And you'll see that the door handle has been removed here from the Suzuki Swift. Apparently people just didn't like that and couldn't get used to it. So they've put it back here on the body of the door, and that is the most notable change on the side. God, I love small, cheap cars. Well, let's talk about the bum. I can't lie to you guys, the Suzuki Swift has a bit of a dump truck going on here. It's got a very wide rear end, and I love it. You got these really cool 3D effect LED lights here. You get a halogen reverse signal, but you know what? I'll give it a pass because the rest of it looks really nice. You've also got sensors here at the back, a hybrid badge. Is it much of a hybrid? We'll come back to that. Suzuki badge there. You've also got Swift here too, and no, it doesn't mean you're a Swiftie. That hurt. You've also got your reverse camera here, it's average, and a huge fat bumper there to diffuse all of the air. But what can it fit inside of its bum? Well, actually a significant amount. It's now grown from 242 litres of boot space to 265 litres of boot space, and it feels really usable. You've also got a tiny bit of underfloor storage, not very much, and you can drop the second row and get even more space, but it does leave you with a hump in the floor, but who cares, because really it's such a small little car with pretty impressive packaging. actually, for such a small car. This thing is just 3.86 meters long. That's really not very long. But I think that this is the most interesting part. First of all, let's talk about the design because it looks actually really good. Now, you got to remember that this is still a cheap car that really in Australia is one of the cheapest. It's in one of the lighter segments and it only weighs under 900 kilos, right? So yeah, ooh, scratchy materials are absolutely everywhere. I absolutely hate the feeling of that. However, you get what you pay for, and really in the grand scheme of things, you're still not paying very much. You have this diamond pattern here. I love the contrasting like white and black interior, just really lightens it up. Definitely a lot nicer than before where it was just a sea of black scratchy plastics. It's still scratchy plastics, but at least it's not just dark in here. You retain the same steering wheel as far as I can tell, though you do get a few new buttons, namely this lane centering button here, which is a new feature. This thing has a fully updated safety suite, which is nice. You've also got your adaptive cruise control buttons here, which is again nice to have, and your phone controls are down here, and it's actually quite easy to use. I wish more cars did this. So what else is new? Well, technology has had a massive update. So you now get a 9-inch infotainment display here, which seems to be a lot better than pretty much every other Suzuki-based system. They generally haven't worked very well, and in a lot of Jimnys, for example, they've just not worked at all. But here it is actually working quite well. You've got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is always nice to see. It does have a weird coating on it. You can probably hear it. It makes it really hard to drag your finger across it, which is just strange, I think. But it does come with inbuilt navigation and, you know, it works fine. You know, for a cheap car, it works fine. Up in front of you, you get an updated instrument cluster. You actually get quite a lot of information in the screen up in front of you, including your new hybrid screen, where you can see what electric assistance you're getting from the electric motor and, of course, lithium-ion battery. But you still retain your analog gauges, which I quite like because you could just see a cool little tack there. Always cool for me. If you're ever worried about charging, don't be in the new Suzuki Swift. So you have a USB-A port here. You've got a USB-C and USB-A port in the center and a 12-volt socky-wocky. You've also got a wireless charger. Now, remember that this is the top of the range that I'm sitting in at the moment. So yeah, don't expect that wireless charger in the very low specs. You've also got a couple of cup holders here and one for the back, but that is important. We'll come back to that in the back seats. You still retain your manual handbrake, which is interesting because I thought it was coming now with electronic parking brake, but apparently we don't get that in Australia, but I know a lot of you are going to be happy about that. And by the way, these cloth seats, which now do have more bolstering, and they are actually quite comfortable and very supportive, they actually come heated as well, which is something you don't often see on cloth seats, but I'm really happy to see it. Storage is again remarkably good. The glove box is actually quite massive for such a small car. The door bins are remarkably large as well, and it just feels like a well thought out interior. Certainly is not breaking the game in any way. It doesn't really innovate over any other car, but what it does bring is simplicity and ease of use, which honestly is often better than just wowing technology. All right, let's check out the back seats. Coming to the back now, if you were expecting a car that weighs 100 kilos less than a Mazda MX-5, if you were expecting a lot of space in the back, you'd be very wrong. But actually, it's okay. I'm 5'11". This is my normal seating position. No, I haven't just slammed these seats all the way back. I actually have enough legroom. It's not the best, but it's enough. Toe room is really good, and headroom as well is weirdly really good, just because it's so boxy back here. You don't get any amenities. That's why that cup holder is so important, because apart from the door bins, there's nowhere else to store drinks. You don't get any map pockets back here. Everything is very scratchy, but I honestly don't really care because that's the class of this vehicle. You also get cloth seats in the back with more bolstering, like I said, no pull down armrest, but that's okay. So yeah, overall, the interior to me feels like a pretty big step up. It just feels like it's been modernized to the point of 2024, though I would be interested to see how this car fares in 2026. Don't know if it'll be the most mind-blowing then. However, we can blow your mind here at CarSauce. CarSauce.com/buy. We have partnered with Australia's #1 car buying service to bring you guys the absolute best deals on your next new car. Best of all, it's a totally free service for you. We charge the dealers a fixed fee, and because of that, we will always go in the hardest for the best price. Not to mention, because we have thousands of dealers, we can source cars from anywhere in Australia, meaning you get your car sooner. So if that sounds good to you, and it definitely should, head to carsauce.com/buy, get in touch with us, and our team will help you out. Okay, let's talk about the engine now. Ooh, it's not even that hot. This is a 3-cylinder, 1.2 litre naturally aspirated engine. You might think, well, that's the same displacement as before. It's also 1.2 litres, but that was actually a 4-cylinder engine and really an entirely different engine. So now this beast puts out 60.9 kilowatt of power. Yes, 60.9 and 111.8 Newton meters of torque. That's right. They quote down to the points. I think it's because it's so small. Interestingly, that's actually less power and torque than before. Before it was 66 kilowatt of power and 120 Newton meters of torque if you went for the base model engine, the 1.2 litre 4-cylinder. However, this thing also gets an electric motor, and that adds 2.3 kilowatt of power, but more importantly, 60 Newton meters of torque. So Suzuki called this a hybrid. Really, this is a mild hybrid. Essentially what that means is that it runs a lot of the accessories, the electric components of the car, and that takes load off the engine. It means it can idle lower and it just uses less fuel in general. How does that translate to real world driving? Well, we'll talk about that when we take this thing for a drive. But this engine is also not the only thing that's new with the Suzuki Swift. You also get an all-new CVT. They call it the ultra lightweight CVT, and I believe them because even with the auto, this thing still weighs just over 900 kilograms. But like I said, the 5-speed manual, which this thing comes with as standard, it's still well under 900 kilos, which is crazy to me. And that has had some changing in its gearing ratios. But they also say that with the new CVT, it's got a new torque converter in it, and that helps to reduce the noise, vibration, and harshness, essentially how loud it is inside of the cabin. Can you really tell? Well, maybe a little bit, but this thing is so lightweight, and frankly, all the sheet metal is quite thin, that you still hear quite a lot of road noise. But it's a cheap car. What do you really expect? And then at the front, the stabilizer bar diameter has been increased, and apparently that helps with ride comfort and, again, noise, vibration, and harshness. But you still retain the torsion bar rear, which is not the best. So really under the skin, despite sharing the same platform as before, the drivetrain and the way that this thing drives is actually remarkably different to before. And what better way to test that out than by launching it? So let's do that. Okay, let's start by launching the manual. Here we go, baby. Oh my God, that was a lot of wheel tramp. Come on. It's not fast. Come on, baby. Oh, look, I possibly could have done better, but you can't expect much when this thing has a max output of 64 kilowatts with the electric motor. 0 to 100 in 12.46 seconds. That's pretty slow. That's pretty slow. All right, let's launch the auto. Okay, so now we have our specialist timing gear up again for the auto. This time we're gonna put the car in manual mode, floor it. Here we go. Feels a bit quicker. Come on, baby. Get me up to the speed limit, please. It's really not fast. Come on. Come on. Oh, that's actually quite close. 0 to 100 in 12.94 seconds. So you heard it here first. If you want a faster Suzuki Swift, well, you're gonna have to get the manual, aren't you? Alrighty guys, here we are in the manual. Yeah, look, it's pretty slow. It's pretty slow, but actually it doesn't feel that bad. So what's the headlining change here for the manual before we go to the CVT auto? Well, it's the 5-speed, namely that the ratios have been updated. Honestly, from the seat of my pants, I can't really notice that, but there are some other things that I'm really noticing here in the manual, and that thankfully do carry over to the auto. So first of all, it's noise in here. You know how I said earlier that it's still quite noisy and loud? They've made a lot of changes. Now that I'm driving this thing properly, it's actually quite quiet in here, and you can hear it through the microphone, or lack thereof, especially for such a small car. The other thing is ride quality. So like I said, I'm in the manual now, and that is the lightest of the Suzuki Swifts, and as we downshift here, oh, it's the ride quality that's really surprising me at the moment. It's very, very comfortable. So it's quiet and comfortable, and I mean like really weirdly comfortable. Even here in neglected suburban Melbourne, it's actually quite good. Okay, so let's get to the price, the all-important price. Well, for this manual, it's gone up by $1,000, which really, for everything you get, including the new hybridized system, even if it is a mild hybrid, the technology, the interior design, it's $24,990 drive away, which is really cheap. And it gets even better because fuel economy is saved by about 17% to be precise. Right now I'm sitting at 4.4 litres per 100 kilometres, which is really, really, really good, especially for the manual. Interestingly, the manual claimed is 3.8 litres per 100 kilometres, while the auto is 4 litres per 100 kilometres. And that's because the auto weighs almost 100 kilos more than the manual, which might not sound like a lot, but when you consider that this car weighs less than a ton, it's like almost 15 to 20% more. So yeah, it makes a difference. It does jump up by $2,000, $26,990 if you want the new CVT, and then it tops out at $24,990 for the GLX, and you can only get this manual in the base. But honestly, that's very good value. Not much is $24,990 drive away anymore, that's for sure. I love the fact, by the way, that even the manual gets this adaptive cruise control and lane centering and all of those other driver aids, which makes life just easier. So as you can tell, we've come to a stop now and the engine is turned off. And like I said, it's really quiet. So one of the things I'm really curious to test is how does this 5-speed manual go when you shift it into gear, the engine turns off? Is it smooth? What's that like? So let's wait for this light to turn green, which it has. Turn on was really smooth. The clutch is very light. Very, very light indeed. The shifts are super easy. It's super smooth. But honestly, this is one of the easiest manuals I've driven. Really, really easy, as you would expect for such a small, light car. But you definitely do notice that there is a huge, well, torque gap that even the electric motor doesn't seem to be able to fill. Anything below 2,000 RPM in this car, it just feels so dead. So even though it weighs so little, yeah, don't expect this to be a speed demon. It's not fast. Even with that electric motor, it's not fast. Will the auto be any different? Well, we'll find out in a moment. Alrighty guys, we're in the very quiet auto now. We're gonna see how this thing drives. Let's get the start stop back on. Give it some sauce. Let's see how it performs. Well, it doesn't wheel spin. Sounds like a CV bloody T, doesn't it? Not a bad thing though. Really, when you're spending this kind of money, most torque converter automatics are not better than a CVT because they just are cheap. It's like an automated manual. This, however, you put your foot down, it responds pretty quickly. This is far too close. Ah, there we go. Love a good tilting, telescoping steering wheel. Here's one of the best new things about the Swift though, and that is its handling, because this steering rack has been almost completely revised and it just handles so well. And because it's so light, even in the auto, which is a little heavier than the manual, it's just so nimble. All right, we'll put it in manual mode. We'll use our paddle shifters here, exclusive, by the way, to the GLX. Here we go. Oh. It's really not fast, but it's actually okay. Right now we're averaging 4.7 liters per 100 kilometers, which seems about right. It does have relatively significantly worse fuel economy than the regular manual. So, you know, shit happens, I guess. And we're in the heaviest one too. Don't forget that. Okay, so what happens when you're not driving like an absolute nincompoop? What is the Suzuki Swift Auto like? Well, it's just really easy. Like I said, it doesn't feel very powerful. It doesn't feel very fast at all, but it's still quite nimble in traffic, especially because it is just so lightweight. And that extra torque from the electric motor, you definitely can feel it filling in some of the gaps, though it's minor. You've really got to be looking out for it. If you were hoping that the Suzuki Swift Turbo, not the Sport, but the Turbo was returning, well, that's not coming, unfortunately, but that was quite expensive and it never really made sense to me. And unfortunately, no details on a Suzuki Swift Sport, but I'd be pretty surprised if they didn't have one of those coming sometime soon. Again, I'm actually really impressed by how quiet it is in here. I eat my words of what I said earlier. They've definitely made a significant amount of changes, at least enough to make it really quiet in here. And even though the battery in here, the lithium-ion battery is 0.036 kilowatt hours, which is a tiny battery, it still is able to achieve very good fuel economy. In fact, pretty much the fuel economy of the proper hybrid Toyota Corolla Cross. Even here in the auto, it's still fantastic fuel economy, but at the expense of not being very fast. But it's okay. It's really only above like 70 kilometers an hour that this thing starts to struggle. Honestly, I am really impressed by the driving dynamics of the Suzuki Swift. I didn't expect it to be this good. In fact, I came here with pretty low expectations because of the Suzuki S-Cross. But you know, here we drop a couple of fake gears, give it some sauce, and it does a pretty decent job. I like it. I like it a lot. And we just hit 80 kilometers an hour. Okay, let's get into our final thoughts. Alrighty guys, so final thoughts on the new Suzuki Swift. Should you buy the 4th generation of Suzuki Swift? Well, honestly, for $1,000 more or thereabouts than the previous generation, and topping out at $29,490, I think you're getting a really good deal. You get a car that has all the latest safety, will essentially drive itself down a highway. You get really good kit and inclusions, but it's still easy to use and easy to operate. You just don't really find that anymore more these days. And of course, you get Suzuki reliability. They're pretty good at that, and good fuel economy. So yeah, tick, 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 tick. Let me know what you guys think though down in the comment section below. Would you buy a Suzuki Swift? And of course, if you want the absolute best price on a Suzuki Swift and with cars that are in stock, make sure you check out carsauce.com/buy. Our team will help you get the best prices for free for you. Ciao for now.